Welcome to the Fatherhood Forum. My name is Camuel. I'm your host, and we have
Jason. Welcome to episode 3.
And today we have with us
Bob.
Bob, man, welcome in.
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
us.
Welcome, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get started into the parenting things, give us an intro to who Bob is.
Well, let's see. I've known Jason for going on 8 years.
Yeah, we're going on 8
years. Yeah. And, married 34 years this November, 3 kids,
Nice.
all grown adults on their paths.
Yeah.
And all of them have found that special someone.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We can't, couldn't be more proud. And, but yeah, just, living here in Washington State and working as a photographer. And these 2 guys asked me to come in and chat. I don't know if I have anything of value to share.
Yes, he does.
But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, no, our guests are very excited to listen to you, to your advice, to your journey. I mean, so far our guests have been people who are recent dads, but having you with so much experience and everything, I mean, 3 kids who are older and adults, I think it's gonna be valuable, very valuable information shared here. Are you from Washington State originally?
No, as you can tell with the Packer hat, I'm a cheesehead, born and raised. So is my wife. We met in New York when I was working out there when I was in corporate America, and but all of our family is from Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
And none of the kids were born there. So actually, all 3 of the kids, or 2 of them were born in Minnesota.
Wow.
And then our youngest was born out here in Washington State.
Okay. Wow. So we got 3 kids. Break them down for me. What are their names, ages? What are they up to?
Oldest, Megan, I think she turns 32 in February. Okay. And she went to UW here.
Go Dogs.
In town.
Go Dogs.
And with a physics degree. And she did grad school in Madison, Wisconsin as a Badger. Nice. And she's working aerospace here in the area.
That's awesome.
My daughter Rachel, who is 30, she went to Western Washington University, and she did grad school in Portugal.
Wow.
A lot cheaper than grad school in the United States.
That's a unique perspective too.
So, and she had a great experience there.
Yeah.
And she got married this past June.
Congrats.
And she and her husband Justin are living, they bought a house down in Olympia.
That's awesome.
And then our son Jacob, he graduated from University of Washington.
Go Dogs.
Yeah, he was on the track team with Jason.
Yep. And my college roommate.
Yeah, for freshman sophomore year.
If you're watching this.
And so he had an engineering degree, and he's working for a boutique firm here in Seattle for structural engineering. His girlfriend got moved out to Chicago for her residency. She deals with prosthetics.
Wow.
And so he went with her, and he was able to keep his job here in Seattle.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Working from home.
That's how you know your company wants you and
Yes.
needs you when they keep you around.
So all 3 kids doing good, and the main thing is that they're happy.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we got Megan, Rachel, and Jacob.
Correct.
And then your wife is?
Karen.
Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, speaking of Karen, would love to segue into parenting, right? What are some ways, call it dad and mom, that you parented each of your 3 kids?
So, our path was a little bit different in that, Karen did most of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
With these 3 kids. I mean, I was in corporate. I was climbing the company ladder.
Yeah.
And that caused us to move around quite a bit. So we got married in Wisconsin, moved to Minnesota. That's where we had Megan and Rachel.
Yep.
Then we got moved with a promotion coming out here to Seattle.
Yep.
And then we had Jacob. And then they offered me another promotion, which took us to New York.
Wow.
And so we took the 3 kids there. And then had an opportunity to come back to the West Coast. And so we ended up coming back to this area again.
Wow.
And so throughout that whole time, I was gone quite a bit.
Traveling.
And so, in fact, one of the things I hope we talk about is, work-life balance, because at one point when we were in New York, they asked me to go on a 9-week program up in Cambridge at Harvard for an advanced management thing. And so here I am working in the city, right? Our VP of finance, our CFO, comes in, and it was my last night before I had to go up to Cambridge. And my daughter Megan had a soccer game.
Wow.
After school. And I could have left work, told him, you can talk to the troops here.
Yeah.
I have to get home so I can see my daughter's game and spend time with the family.
Yeah. She's how old is she now?
Oh, right now she's 31.
No, I mean during the soccer
Back
game.
then she was probably maybe, I think, 6th or 7th grade, maybe.
Wow. Still quite young.
Very young.
Yeah.
And
you're still making your impression on who you are as a dad.
Yes.
You can show up for her. So this must have been a critical time for you to be like,
well, and what I did was I opted to stay for this presentation that he was given to our New York office. I didn't head home right away. And when I got home, I pulled into our driveway, and she just had crocodile tears.
Oh, wow.
And so when I went up to Harvard for this program, I was the only American in my living group. And the first weekend, we had to give presentations to the rest of our living group about who we are.
Yeah.
And after I got done with mine, now there was, 6 men and 2 women, and then me, right? All from other countries. So many people, just tears coming down.
Wow.
Because they saw that my work-life balance was totally messed up.
Wow.
And they said, Bob, of anything that we're going to work with you on during this time is going to be about your work-life balance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and coming from other countries, right, that prioritize, you got the countries family leave, up to a year, family leave, and you're able to stay, and then we're here in America, right? We're very blessed to be here, right? But also, family is not they say it's a priority, but it's not a priority, right? Because it doesn't show. Like we don't get paid leave. And
exactly.
Like
and Karen and I, when we stepped into this, when we had Megan, she still worked.
Yeah.
And that was, I'd be crunching numbers in an Excel sheet, right? How can we get this so she can be home?
Yeah.
And, it was tough, even back then, right? And we finally said, you know what, we'd rather have, one of us raising our kids as opposed to somebody else.
Exactly.
We were fortunate that it worked out really well that way, but early on, that was tough. I mean, money was tight, but we made it work. So as we looked at parenting, I mean, Karen is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Shout out to all the moms.
Oh,
Again,
gosh.
every episode we're shouting out the moms.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And, she did so much for those kids.
Yeah.
And she would just be exhausted.
Yeah.
But being creative and taking them to a museum or taking them to a zoo, going to a park, not just sitting at the house, right?
Yeah.
And then I would come home, because usually I would leave early and come back late, I would come home and I'd be exhausted, but I wanted to do as much as I could with the kids.
Yeah. And it's sometimes hard to meet the kids where they are, because they may have had a full day right before you got home, and then you have this renewed sense of energy to be like, I want to spend time with you, but learning how to accept that as a parent too.
Well, and that was always tough too, traveling, and calling home from a hotel room.
Yeah.
And then it's later in the evening for them, right? And I want to be able to talk with the kids.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anything to say. Yeah. It would just be so frustrating, But Karen always calmed me down, and said, that's okay. They're just tired, So
I think that's definitely an early parenting perspective, right? But I would say, especially as you get older and you kind of see your kids grow up, especially being in their 30s, their late 20s right now, how do you feel like your relationship with them has evolved, right? From maybe not being there as much early, but then now that you are home, you're doing photography full time, you can kind of spend that time there.
That's been a huge change.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Karen and I agreed on in raising our kids. Because, again, we would see all these parents out there, right? And we saw how they were dealing with their kids. And one rule that we had, and we had it for all 3 kids, was we're not your friend. We're your parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? We're not here to be your bestie. Karen's not going to call you sister.
Yeah.
Right? And, as they were growing up, there was some headaches with the kids because they wanted to go over to somebody's house who had cool parents that let them do whatever they wanted. And we had rules.
Yeah.
And not only had the rules, but there were consequences.
Yeah.
Because it's not, to have a rule with no consequence,
It's just a...
it's it's nothing really. So you need to have what is that so what type thing.
Yeah.
But then as the kids got older, and I think Jacob was a freshman in high school when I made the transition from corporate into photography.
Yeah.
And I tell you, what a blessing.
Wow.
Because now the kids were coming home from school and I was there.
Yeah.
They had different events during the week and I could go.
Showing it every single time.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember, Jacob would come just plop himself down in my office as I'm working, and I'd kind of stop what I'm doing. We'd chat for an hour.
Yeah.
About his day and everything. That was huge.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Rachel and Megan. Just to be present.
Yeah.
And then it was like shortly thereafter, Megan went off to college. Right. And that was actually another really good lesson that we did with all 3 kids.
Yeah.
And because when we dropped her off at UW at the dorms, we moved her in, got back out to the car, and I said, "Hey, kiddo," I said, "You're only about 25 minutes from home."
I'm still here.
Yeah. and she was like, "Yeah, I know." I said, "No, you're not to come home until Thanksgiving."
Wow. You really wanted her to have that experience.
I said, "I'll talk to you every day on the phone. You want me to come down once in a while to take you to lunch? Be glad to do that." I said, "But you need to deal with this."
Yeah.
Because now you're not living under our house, at our house.
Yeah.
You have to figure out laundry. You have to figure out roommates. You have to figure out those relationships, and there's going to be issues.
Yeah.
But you have to figure out how to navigate through those.
Yeah.
And it was Thanksgiving that she came home.
Wow.
Yeah.
And college is that interesting time where, thinking back on our time, our parents raised us and prepared us for the real world. But college is that nice in between where you're kind of in the real world, but you're still trying to figure out your way and seeing, okay, my parents taught me all this. How do I apply it to real life?
Exactly.
And you wanted her to be like, okay, let me see how well I can apply everything that my parents taught me.
Right. And again, with kids, no matter what age they are, you want to give them as much independence as you can.
Yeah.
While still being there, not to catch them so they don't fall, but to make it so it's not so severe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having a kid fall is not a bad thing. Because then they can learn from that, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want it to go into a disaster area.
Yeah.
And so you can be that safety valve with that.
Yeah, that's very important. Speaking of college too, and that transition, I would say you have very well educated kids, right? All graduated college, some with PhDs, right? Like that's,
No PhDs, just masters.
Not PhDs, but even masters in physics, right? Like that's little very complex topics and things like that. So I'm just curious, how do you instill that work ethic into your children and the drive that got them there?
Well, when we talk about college, my dream was that the 3 kids would go into 3 different trades.
Yeah.
Like one being an electrician, one being a plumber, so they could build me a house, right? And so and college is not for every kid.
It's not.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times parents push this on the kids because the parents want to say, well, my kid goes to this school or my kid is doing this, but it might not be the best thing for the child.
Yeah, it's almost like a badge, like, hey, I raised my
Exactly.
kids so well that they made it to Harvard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Yale or...
But with all 3 of our kids, we, again, another rule, right? We said that, you're going to graduate undergrad debt-free, right? But you have to cover X% of the overall nut.
Yeah.
All right. And I still remember with Megan, seeing that she was the first one to break ground with this.
Yeah.
And all of her friends were applying to all these amazing schools across the country, mostly down in Southern California and Arizona, right?
Sunny.
Or Boston, right? Or Florida.
And she came home one day and she goes, Dad, how come I can't, apply to these other schools? Because we wanted them either in-state or within the WUI for the first 2 years, right? After that, once they figure out what they wanted to do, we could look elsewhere. And I said, okay, let's take a look. I said, name a school. She goes, Stanford. I said, okay, let's look up Stanford. Let's find out what that annual cost is for a freshman at Stanford. And we did. And I said, okay, so kiddo, and she was working at the time at the Outlet Mall in North Bend for Eddie Bauer, and she hated the job. And I was like, okay, so to go to Stanford, here's how many hours you're going to have to work at Eddie Bauer.
Wow.
To cover your part of this. And I said, now let's just throw in the numbers for UW. And I said, now here's how many hours you have to work, which was much less. And she goes, I think I like UW.
We all like UW.
Exactly. But I think it's important, though, for them to have skin in the game, right? To be able to pay for that. Post-grad, Megan was fortunate enough to be recruited from Madison. And so, her master's degree was paid for through them. Rachel, financed and paid for her own post-grad.
Wow.
And
which was the rule to begin with, right?
Such a hard worker when she was up at Western, and she would ride her bike in the rain during the middle of winter to get to her job. And just hard, diligent. But to answer your question, we installed work ethic throughout their lives. So, whether like the holidays, each of the kids were responsible for a part of that meal, right? So they would have to cook, right? They had chores around the house. So we tried to instill responsibility, and probably one of my favorite things is time, right? And so, when you're getting together with somebody, you want people to be on time, right? And I always looked at it as a sign of disrespect if you're not on time. And so we taught them the Lombardi rule from a very young age. And so Green Bay Packers, former
football reference.
Yeah, exactly.
The Lombardi rule.
But basically, if you're earlier on time, you're late. And if you're late, it's unacceptable. And to this day, I believe that my kids all subscribe to that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll add a firsthand experience when I was Jacob's roommate. There would be things we'd do together or go to together, and Jacob had zero tolerance for being on time or not on time. So it's you did a good job. You did a good job.
Very cool.
I want to go back really quickly on you prioritizing your career over early parenting stages. So when you were at this conference, you said your she was about 7 when she had that game, right?
Probably about 7th grade or so.
7th grade.
Yeah.
And you didn't switch careers until Jacob was into his freshman year.
Yeah, it was about 13 years ago.
Right. So in that span of time, what were some of the things that you were working on to transition out of that corporate life to then be like, I want to be in my kids' lives more?
So
that's a good question.
A big part of that was within the company I was working for. We acquired another company, and in the process, we went public. Right. And before we did that, some of us were asked to come back to Wisconsin to meet with the family, who founded the company. And I had one simple question at that time. So around this big table, right, there was probably about 15 of us. And I said, with this acquisition, I know that the culture will change within the company, but will the fabric change? Because the fabric was all about the employee and taking care of the employee. And the patriarch of the matriarch of the family said, absolutely not. Nothing's going to change with that. Fast forward, you go public. First quarter, I get a phone call out here. Bob, your team on the West Coast is above plan, but we're not above plan corporate wide.
Wow.
You need to lose 3 people on your West Coast.
Oh, wow.
And it was affecting that. And finally, had enough.
Yeah.
And so I came home and I talked with Karen and said, if I keep doing this, I'm going to die young.
Wow.
Because I was gone all the time.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, what do you want to do? And I pulled out this business plan I had written like 10 years earlier. And I showed it to her, and right away she's thinking, she didn't tell me this, but she's thinking midlife crisis.
He's going to buy a Ferrari.
He's going to do this for a couple of months, and then he's going to get a real job, right?
Yeah.
And then the next day I talked with my accountant, same thing. And it's been 13 years.
Wow.
So not making what I was making, making a lot less, but much happier.
Yeah, being fulfilled,
Yeah.
you know, in other places. Right?
Exactly.
So I think that's a lesson on entrepreneurship too, and you know, being the main provider or being the breadwinner of the family and having to sort of build something from the ground up, right? How do you sort of transition from the corporate world into this new world where the income isn't the same, but the expenses are definitely the same? And being diligent and disciplined around that.
It's stressful.
Yeah, while taking care of kids who aren't getting cheaper
Right.
in this day and age either.
Yeah. I mean, being the sole income for a family is stressful.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't want to have that stress impact the family.
Yeah.
And so I internalized a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know, shame on me, but I tried not to bring any of that baggage home.
Yeah.
Right.
Kids don't care.
Kids don't care, but also just trying to keep it away from my wife.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, she had enough on her plate.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was super stressful because, you know, if your job goes away, then the family doesn't have anything to rely on. Right. Yeah. So, but making that transition from corporate, it was pretty immediate, and but it was also hard. You know, my wife would say from time to time, you know, if I was a little overbearing, Bob, you're not that VP anymore.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, and so you know, she had to kind of retool me. Right, into a different mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been one to kind of push things forward. I wanted to install that with the kids, you know, strive.
Yeah.
But I had to come down a few notches as far as to be more relaxed.
Yeah.
And that was not the easiest thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But now, you know, I'm sitting back here, kicking back with you two guys.
On the couch, relaxing.
Yeah.
Thinking back about, you know, when your kids were little, and what were some of the favorite ages or stages that you really cherish and you look back upon?
You know, I don't think I can pinpoint one specific age. I can pinpoint activities that we did with the kids. And probably the biggest one that I just cherished, and so did Karen, is reading.
Wow.
Reading books with the kids.
Yeah.
And again, even with that, you know, the kids are going to ebb and flow with two parents, right? Of who they want and who they don't want. And that's also a killer when, you know, hey kiddo, you want to read a book? No, I want mom. You know, it's like, oh.
You just get so hurt.
And at first, I was like, oh my God. And Karen's like, Bob, just stay with us, you know, here. And she goes, I'll read, but you can be right next to her, right? But reading with the kids was huge, and they're avid readers. The other thing that I love to do with them, and again, it's just trying to find creative ways to spend time with your kids, right?
Yeah.
Singing.
Wow.
Right? I have a terrible voice, but I grew up in a household where my mom sang all the time. I remember being at the kitchen sink doing the dishes with my two sisters and my mom, and she'd be singing, you know, they'd be harmonizing songs from musicals.
Yeah.
And so, you know, singing with the kids when they were real little, you know, and just having that kind of a connection.
Yeah. I think music is like an underrated stimulation for kids. And I know for me, like just having Jamaican culture just in my background, like anytime we put reggae on for Maya, like that will stop a cry like in an instant.
Yeah.
So it's like I completely understand what you mean by that, because it's a whole nother side of their brain that, depending on the family that you're born into, depending on the culture that you're born into, you're tapping into a really long history of what is this voice, what is this instrument, what is this tone, and it helps them later on in coordination and dancing, in energy levels, because music has a powerful effect in that sense.
Definitely. But you know, to go back to your question, you know, looking at the different ages, I mean, the kids are going to act differently depending on that age, right? And high school was probably the most challenging, just because of peer pressure and what other kids, and you know, we're starting to get into that social media and texting and things like that.
They're leaving your bubble that you created.
Exactly. And you know, I still remember with one of our kids, you know, with cell phones. I remember she got her cell phone when we were living in New York. But we told her, I said, this is not yours. This belongs to us.
Yeah.
We're just letting you use it. So anytime that we ask for the phone, you have to give it to us.
Yeah.
And I remember we were living out here, and you could just tell something was up, right? She was just kind of quiet. We were in the car, and Karen was driving, and I just kind of put my hand back. And I said, hey, kiddo, I said, give me your phone.
Wow.
And she's how old at this point?
Oh, she was in high school, I think, at this point.
So teenager.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? I was like, yeah, remember, that's our phone, not yours.
Yeah.
I said, give me your phone.
Because you saw she was on it.
Yeah, and
something was off.
Something was on.
Yeah.
And so I think in her mind, she was thinking, okay, I'm going to give this to Dad. He doesn't know anything about this technology. He's not going to be able to read anything. And I just kind of went through a little bit of the text messages, and I saw this one text message that was written to her from this boy.
Wow.
That was just really bad. It was kind of mean. And I just closed up the phone, handed it back to her. I said, okay, thanks, kiddo.
You didn't even tell her about it.
Wow.
No. And then, you know, just in the days following, you know, we were doing something together, and I said, you know, gosh, at your age, I remember being your age, you know, some guys can just be assholes, right? You know, they can say the wrong thing, and she's like, yeah. And we were able to talk about it without her telling me that this actually happened.
Yeah, because you probably would have brought it up in front of her other siblings, and maybe you just didn't want to make a big deal out of it right now.
Exactly.
And that's such a sensitive thing as a parent too, because I know probably fathers who'd be like, you're talking to so-and-so, you didn't let us know that you're doing this, like this was our phone, you're not getting this back for 2 weeks, right? That's a normal reaction, I think, from a lot of parents, but...
And maybe for that situation with that household, maybe that is the right situation. Yeah. That's one thing, you know, as you guys, you know, grow to be fathers, right? Go with your gut.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks out there, right? Go with your gut. And at the end of the day, whatever you and your wife decide, that's the right answer.
Yeah.
Right? No matter what anyone else says.
All the outside noise is just noise.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, if they're family, let them say their piece, right? If they're not, you can shut them up a little bit. But go with your gut and stick with your decision. Now, you can also grow from that decision, right?
Yeah.
So we've had times where we've made a call on something, and guess what? We missed it. It was a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
You have to be able to say, you know what, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is what we're going to do now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great that you're able to admit whenever you're at fault, right? And the ability to communicate that with your kids. I think it instills a sense of ownership for right decisions and also wrong decisions. So do you have an example of how ownership is just sort of played up in your life, and how as a father, it's kind of taken, like, you know, an important seat?
Well, so like a time that I was wrong, and I think, like you said, I think it's really important that as parents, you own it.
Yeah.
Right. And that if you do make the wrong judgment call, or you saw something a certain way and it was actually a different way, as a parent, you have to own that with that child.
Yeah.
And say, you know what? Totally misread it. Right. Totally saw it the wrong way. Sorry, I did a snap judgment. I was wrong. You know, let's talk about it. Of what the actual facts were. And that will happen with kids.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're not going to necessarily be, you know, forthright with all the information. So you're making decisions and making assumptions based on the information that you do have. Right? And depending on the kid, sometimes they'll hear it, say, well, okay, fine, and they'll storm off. Right? And you let them a little bit, but then you also want to get back into that dialogue. Okay, so, you know, this is your punishment, but if I'm reading this wrong, you know, tell me what is true. And the other part of it is, there's a lot of parents, I think, out there that just, so the word no is is actually a good and beneficial word as parents. Sometimes no is a complete sentence,
Yeah.
right? They're doing something, no. And you don't have to coddle them and say, all of this. Sometimes it's a complete sentence. But as my grandmother always told my father, and my father instilled it with me, if you're going to tell me what's wrong, you have to tell me what's right.
Yeah.
Right? So we as parents, we as fathers, can't just say you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Or don't do that, period.
Yeah.
Right? You got to share with that kid, okay, so this is what you wanted to do, and here's why it's not a good thing, but here's what you can do.
Yeah.
And actually make it a better situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Did that kind of answer your question?
For
or
sure.
not?
And it immediately made me just think about like the corporate environment again, right? Like imagine going to your boss and you're saying, this is all wrong. And you just sitting there, right? It doesn't show ownership. It doesn't show that you actually understand the problem enough to go to the lens of saying, this is the solution of how we can fix it. And that's how you kind of get the point. So I can imagine as a father too, it's like, you are that leader for your children, right?
Yeah.
You're setting the path, and your ability to make a decision, one as quickly but as informed as possible, is very important, right?
Well, and that goes again back to sometimes no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Right. And because especially as the kids get older and they get into their teens and high school years, again, they're wanting to go off and do more things.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll come to, me or Karen, and they would say, hey, can I do this? And sometimes it's just no.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be all the time a discussion or a negotiation.
It's that line of like, you're the parent, we're not friends, right?
Right.
I'm your parent.
Yes, that's big, And some of that would be, just they wanted to go to somebody's house or they wanted to go somewhere for a sleepover. Well, what parents are going to be there?
Yeah.
Are their parents even home?
Yeah.
Type thing. And we were kind of those boring, parents that had rules that we did not want to break.
Yeah.
Right. But the hard part is, gosh, you think about back when you were a kid.
The rules were broken for sure.
And like even when we took Megan to college for the first time and we're walking around, campus there.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of sharing stories from when I was in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think as you're raising your own kids, you don't want them to do all the things that you did as when you were that age. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a natural thing as parents too. And, I think it goes both sides, right? I think some parents can be too protective that their kids actually seek that whenever they're actually out of the house. And, the what do you call it? The guardrails or the habits weren't set well enough where they're out of that environment. Cool. All bets are off. I'm going crazy. But the other bet too is if you do your job right, you're not just like giving them the platform, but you're also giving them the guardrails in that new environment too, right? So
I think as parents, you want to be able to give them the building blocks to create a path for themselves going forward.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is giving them responsibility, as they're growing up. And I'll just give one quick example. And, here we are in 2025, right? So many parents out there are helicopter parents.
Yes.
Right?
Now on this social media where you're just getting fed information.
Yeah. As a photographer, I see a lot of these parents as I'm doing senior portraits. And I'm just going to share this one really quick story. So I had this kid, did the consult in person, good kid. 2 weeks later was this photo shoot. We get to the first location. I said, okay, buddy, I said, put on that shirt, these pants, these shoes. And he gets into the back seat. He comes out of the back seat. His pants were unbuttoned. His shirt was unbuttoned. And Mom steps up and buttons up his shirt, tucks his shirt into his pants with her hand.
High school,
17 years old,
Mister.
And I was like, oh my God, this kid's not ready. And so we're walking to the first part of this photo shoot, and I was like, hey, buddy, I said, remind me again, are you going to school next year? He goes, yeah. I said, where? I said, Wazoo. Now, Mom is like 5 feet behind us as we're walking.
Yeah.
And I said, so, has Mom found an apartment yet? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, apparently you can't dress yourself.
Did she hear that?
Yeah, she heard me. And I said, buddy, I said, your mom had her hand down your pants, tucking in your shirt. I said, you're 17. You got to grow up.
Wow.
And the rest of that photo shoot, whenever he needed to change, he's like, I got this, Mom.
Yeah.
I was so proud of the kid.
Yeah.
But, you have to be able to give the kids
Independence,
independence,
freedom.
right?
Yeah.
So, but not too much.
It's always
There's ebb and flow to
there's
it.
ebb and
Yes,
flow.
exactly.
So, yeah. Transitioning to being empty nesters,
Yeah.
right? How was that transition from your kids being at home, high school, going to games, going to sporting events, and then Jacob's the last one to leave, and now it's just
Love it.
just Bob and Karen.
Love it.
Love it. And I give this advice to parents, especially if I'm doing their last kids, senior portraits, right?
Yeah.
And Karen and I really, so our relationship actually, we had a really good relationship when I was in corporate, right? And again, just like with any relationship, there's, sometimes there's, little hiccups,
Of course.
right? And just, kind of this, but overall we had a really good relationship. But then when I left corporate and was working at home, all of a sudden, I'm seeing her every morning.
Yeah.
We're going to bed every night together.
Yeah.
I'm not traveling, So when Jacob, our youngest, was in his junior year, Karen and I sat down, we said, what do we want empty nester thing to look like?
You guys had a conversation.
We had a conversation about it.
2 years before
Yeah.
before he even left. Yeah.
And so we started implementing some of that of, getting away for a weekend.
Yeah.
When Jacob was a senior in high school,
Yeah.
and he would be like, hey, where are you going? And I was like, buddy, there's food in the fridge, right? There's a car in the driveway.
And you got 2 dogs.
And we have cameras on the house, so we know you're not going to have a party.
Yeah.
But, just what really helped our transition was, again, just communication.
Yeah.
Karen is my best friend.
Yeah.
And
Gosh, has to be that way.
I mean, she is everything to me, and, I think some people think it's kind of weird that we do everything together.
Yeah.
We do. It's like, hey, I need to run to the grocery store. Oh, I'll come with you.
Yeah.
It's literally Valencia and I.
Exactly. And you know what? I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, here in a week or so, she's going to be flying to the East Coast for a girls' weekend with her college roommates.
Yeah.
That she's still really close to. But transitioning to empty nester, we transitioned out of the house that we were in, got a house that was more scalable for us. I'd like to call it not downsizing, but right sizing.
Yeah, right. Right.
And in fact, it's kind of funny when Megan came home from grad school, she was looking for a job and at this new house, and my office is in the living room. And so my desk faces the stairs coming down from the upstairs. And Megan wakes up one morning and comes down the stairs, sits down on the stairs. She's like, Dad, I liked our other house better. Because she had her big bedroom with a Jack and Jill bathroom and all of it was really nice. And I was like, well, you know what, kiddo? I said, the funny thing is, we didn't buy this house for you. And I said, those bedrooms up there are big enough for you guys to come home and visit. Right? Yeah. But they're small enough where you don't want to stay for a long time.
Yeah.
Just like the guest
our
room.
time.
It's
now.
exactly.
And so, empty nester is, again, it's, if you're lucky enough to have this love affair, with another person, right? And you're able to, again, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And Karen, bar none, I've never met another person like her. She's just, and again, we talk about fatherhood, but maybe at some point you could have a mom on this podcast.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
That's definitely the plan.
Yeah.
She gave heart and soul to these 3 kids.
Yeah.
She did so much, and it's just amazing.
It's probably and I'll ask another question after this, but it's probably a testament to like being a good father if you do have a really strong supportive partner to do parenthood with, right? And I think, you know, motherhood is definitely a voice that I think we're missing.
Yeah.
And I'll also add too, right? Knowing how to be a father is as important as how good of a mother you have to help raise your kids, right?
Well,
So-
and if you think about it, for, you know, raising kids, for them to see a stable relationship, for them to see the love and respect that, you know, we have for one another,
yeah.
you know, for them to witness it day in and day out. You know, I think that they take that into their relationships that they're forging, you know, with other people. And I think that's just so important. But, and again, you know, seeing these parents with senior portraits, right? You can tell the ones that, you know what, after that last one leaves the house, they're probably going to be divorced in a couple of years because frankly, they don't like each other.
Yeah.
You know, they're staying together for the kids.
Yeah.
The kids have to realize that and see that.
Yeah.
And don't you think that would affect the kid?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And so having that relationship, you know, we never got into, I can't say never, but very few times did we ever get into like big arguments in front of the kids.
Yeah.
You know, we tried to, you know, if there was an argument, we would talk, you know, separately from the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that shared respect, right?
Yeah.
It's that shared respect. And you respect your partner enough to not do that in front of, you know, her kids too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as your kids grow older and they're empty nesters and they're finding their way through life, how do you still stay close to them? You know,
I tell you, it's hard because, you know, you've raised these kids and, you know, hopefully you've taught them some valuable lessons that they can take on in life. But as they get older, so Megan and Rachel are both married now.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need their dad as much as they used to. You know,
I don't want to think about it.
I know, and well, part of me, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Right. But part of me is I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah.
You know, each one of them, you know, because with their marriages, they found men, not boys. They found men that I truly respect.
Yeah.
and I think a big part of that is the example that you and Karen laid out with your relationship. Like they have a standard because of what you guys have set as growing up.
We hope so.
Well, it's charm because you know it seems like you respect these two men that married your daughter so much. You know, respect them as men, as you said, they're men and not kids, right? You know, and that just shows is a testament of what leading by example is.
Exactly.
Especially in this time where it's standards are not high anymore. Unfortunately.
And the availability, right? Like I think, and I think there's love out there for everyone, right? And I think even for people who even want kids and just can't even find the partner to find to get the children that they want, it's like I think there's a lot of fear around how to go out into the world and find the person that is very important to you. And I think half of being, not half, I don't know the percentage, but part of being a good parent is making sure that you're parenting with the right person. And like what Kem said, right? Like you must have set that example to be like, for the father of my future children, if I'm going to get married, like this is the example that I'm trying to set. And it's a kudos on you that you're able to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because, you talked about, finding somebody that you want to grow a family with.
Yeah.
Right. When I first met Karen in New York all those years ago, I knew right away she was the one.
I always tell my friends.
Yes.
I always tell my friends, like, when you know.
Yeah.
You know.
And I knew right away. And so I was the sales guy because I was on constant pursuit. And she was living in Wisconsin. I was living in New York. But I always told her, you are going to be the most amazing mom.
Wow.
And she never believed it. She didn't think she was.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you're gonna knock this thing out of the park. And even at the onset when we first started having kids, she didn't think she was doing a good job. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And, and then she finally realized that she's really good at it.
Oh, for sure.
For
sure.
And the kids, again, I just love, even now with the adult kids, I love when they come home and they're just doting all over Karen, you know, and laughing at her jokes. And, you know, it's like, you know, within our yard, she likes to do a garden tour.
Yeah.
You know, you have a glass of wine and she goes around and talks about all the different plants. And the kids are always, yeah, let's do that, Mom. You know, it's just a cool thing.
Yeah.
So.
How did you validate her to let her know, as you know, as the kids were growing and you go through these ages of teenagers and, you know, whatever, how did you validate her, like, no, you are a good mom? Because it seems like she needed that validation.
It's kind of just, you know, calling things out.
Yeah.
And saying, wow, look at what you've done. Look at what you did with this. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, hey, thank you so much for, you know, this is what was happening with this kid. And you pulled me back a little bit, saying, Bob, you know, instead of that approach, maybe you want to approach it this way.
Yeah.
Home run. You know, well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, and just kind of validating things that she does or says, you know, in the moment or shortly thereafter, right? But yeah, she's an amazing woman.
I think a theme there is gratitude.
Yes.
Right.
Oh.
And maybe there's different lessons of gratitude to teach. I know for me, gratitude was something that was always just sort of reinforced whenever everything was going wrong. Make sure you're happy for what you got. You know what I mean? And I think for you, like you really do a good job of showing that, hey, I'm really thankful for you, right? And maybe you say it in different ways, you know, but I'm just curious, you know, what's gratitude mean to you in the sense of being a dad and making your family feel like you're very happy to have them?
Well, I think, you know, with the kids, you know, gratitude is showing them how important family is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to sound like, what's the guy from Fast and Furious, Toretto?
Yeah, Dominic Toretto.
Yeah,
Family.
But it is. It's all about family.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, when this Thanksgiving, everyone's going to be home. And then it's funny because we're actually going to have a full house. I think each one of the kids are bringing people.
Wow.
Yeah. And because we've always told the kids, our house is open.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you have any friends that can't get home or don't have a home or, you know, whatever, have them come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, Jacob did that with some of the throwers.
Yeah, I was there on the first Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I met Jacob and his
Yeah.
family. I was like, yeah, this is great. I will be here almost every Thanksgiving from now on.
But also gratitude is shown, you know, sometimes it's shown in words, sometimes it's shown in action.
Yeah.
You know, being there. Rachel and I have started birding together, right? And so she lives down in Olympia.
Yeah.
And, you know, on the days that we go, you know, I'll get up early. I'll leave the house at like 5:15, 5:30, drive down to Nisqually. We'll go birding for a couple of hours. She heads home to work. I drive back to North Bend to work.
Super cool.
And that's just a new bonding that has evolved over the years.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you said, oh yeah, you're going to be birding on a Saturday afternoon with your daughter like 20 years ago.
No
like,
way.
Birding?
Yeah.
We're going to a Packers game. What are you talking about?
I see a bird right there in the backyard. Right?
Yeah.
But, you know, also gratitude is just, you know, not being afraid to say I love you.
Yeah.
You know, love you, kiddo.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's so many people, it's easy to say it because they don't really mean it. It's just kind of, you know, yeah, I have to say it type thing. But hopefully I think we've installed within our kids that when they say it, they mean it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, so gratitude for Karen. I kind of show that also with, you know, things that she used to do all the time. Like she used to do all the cooking. Like with the kids and I would be gone. I do probably 98% of the cooking now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's my turn now.
Yeah, exactly. And the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny because I remember going to the grocery stores when I was in corporate and I'd be like, oh, come on, your cabin.
Yeah.
You know, let's get going here. You know, because she knew everyone in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Now,
That's you.
and I'm getting it.
She's like, Mom, we got to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So,
Yeah. So many good points there. So many ways I want to go. But, you know, you talked about family being the most important thing, but then you're also encouraging them Jacob and telling your daughters like, hey, you can also move away. So like, where is that balance? Like, you can move to multiple states, right, to the East Coast with Jacob, but you also say that family is the most important thing. So like, what is that balance?
So family doesn't have to be proximity, right? And again, I want each of my 3 kids to make the best decision for them, right? Yeah, it'd be great if we lived in the same neighborhood. Or no, probably not the same neighborhood.
Too close. Too close.
There has to be a little separation of church and state there. But, within the same area, right? So that you can see each other, you can get together, you can help on projects, or you're over there helping with things, and doing that. And I know firsthand, we did all this moving around the country for the betterment of our family. So you have the bigger family, which is, Karen and me and the kids.
And now their spouses.
Now they're having, the 2 of them right now are a family. And so we'll support whatever is best for them. And if that means they have an opportunity to go to another state or another country even, if they feel that's the best for them, we're going to be sad. But I want them to be happy. Right? And no matter where you end up, it's a plane ride. Big deal. And if as we get closer to retirement, we might have more time to take a plane ride.
And if it's important, you'll make it work.
Yes.
Right. You'll make it work.
And accessibility now more than ever, like it's a plane ride. It's a car ride. It can be right.
We have Ubers on our phone.
Yes.
You hop off the plane, take the Uber. I'm one of your.
There's ways to. Okay.
But at the end of the day, I want what's best for the kids. I want whatever's going to make them thrive the most, right, and be happy.
Something that I've been like butting heads with my parents is the topic of, I'm so busy right now with work and, getting the nursery ready and just life, my own life with my wife. And, I get texts from my parents like, oh, you don't call me anymore. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm busy, but doesn't mean you can't call me.
Right.
So how do you do it? Do you feel like it's the parents' job to call the kids, or is it the kids' job to call the parents, when they're older and out of the house?
The answer to that is yes. Right? And, it's easy as a parent to say, well, I never hear from them. And again, as parents, we get busy and our kids get busy. So they know Karen's schedule and they know my schedule, and then we kind of know their schedule. So we know that, how I connect is like with my oldest Megan, I know her commuting time in the morning because she's in traffic on I-5 is a great time to connect with her. And she'll either call me or I'll call her. She calls me probably more than I call her because at that time in the morning, I'm just like blinders on working on images. With Rachel, the way I'm able to connect with her is we talk about, she works during the day, but she gets done somewhat early. We're able to talk, but doing the birding thing with her and having that couple of hours in person.
You get so much more information.
Yes. And then with Jacob, Jacob just spoke to him today. In fact, he's like, how come you didn't tell me you were doing this podcast? I said, how'd you find out? Because I was talking with Jason. But, and again, his schedule, God, of all the kids, he is just the busiest. He's like hair on fire all the time. And so it's trying to catch him when you can, but he also makes it a point to call us. One thing we've had to do with him is, like he went up to see one of my brothers and his family with his girlfriend Sam, and he sent a couple of photos, which were great. And then he and I connected a few days later, and I was like, hey, would like to talk with you about your trip up there. He goes, well, I sent you the photos. And I said, Jake, it's not the same thing. I said, we want to hear from you. I said, we miss you. And sending pictures. We love those. But let's connect. So he just did something fun this past weekend with his grandparents in Wisconsin. And so he called me today. We were just chatting. He started to tell me about his trip. And I was like, stop. I said, let's connect. later on after mom's done with work.
Yeah.
So you
she
can
wants
share
to hear
this.
it too.
Yeah. So you can share it with both of us at the same time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because you don't want that mismatch of information, and then your wife asks you, "Oh, how'd Jacob do with this trip?" And then you're able to give her all the excitement that maybe Jacob gave you, and she's like, "Why didn't I hear this from Jacob?"
Exactly. Yeah. But connecting is it's a two-way street.
Yeah, it is a two-way street.
And again, if family means that much, you'll make the time for it.
Yeah, I wonder too, right? Like when you have and this is just my experience of having a child, and then, now connecting is how you do this in the first 2 weeks is very, very, very important, right? And you get to start to see how different people come out of the woodworks, right? To want to build that relationship with you. And I think you should have that open heart to be like, okay, let's see how long this will last if we both share this cadence. But I think it's also important, right? If you're putting in more work than the other person, it's either having a conversation about it, but also figuring out like, okay, what do we really want this relationship to be? But I think with kids, right, like you always have to be putting that effort forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Jacob, hair on fire, being so busy. How do you feel like being on the back burner? Like they're probably not thinking about you every single day, right?
Right.
As we're saying, right? They're not calling you every day. Like how does that make you feel being on the back burner?
Knowing that they're living their lives. I mean, do I wish do I wish all my kids would call me after they've done something exciting to say, "Oh my God, I wanted to tell you all about this. I'm bursting at the seams. I just want to share this with you."
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you kind of, they're growing into adulthood. And again, I look back to when I was their age.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I call my parents all the time and say, "Oh, I just did this. Oh, I just did that." Didn't. Right. And so if they're not sharing constantly like that, it's okay.
Let's go, enter a time of reflection. What do you think matters most in parenting?
Being present.
Wow.
Being present.
And that says a lot from somebody who you just shared that you weren't always present because of your work.
Were there times that it just killed me that I wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being honest, there were times I'd be in a hotel in another state and at night in tears.
Yeah.
That I was not home with my kids and my wife.
Yeah.
So, but when you are there, being present, right, and listening to them, I had to develop that because again, when I was in corporate, I was used to giving orders, right, and not listening as much. And as a parent, it's all about listening.
Yeah.
Just, gosh, how do I want to put that? Showing them that they are loved, no matter what.
Yeah.
Dye your hair pink, love you. You get a nose ring, love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do you.
Yeah.
After a certain age.
Yeah.
Right. Prior to that, it's kind of like, okay, we still saying this.
You don't have free will yet.
Yeah. But for you guys, it's showing them, showing your kids that you're there for them.
Yeah.
And that you'll have their back.
That presence is very important.
And again, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my kids. In fact, it was funny. We did a trip up to Alaska where we flew into Anchorage and rented an RV. Right. And this is back when I was in corporate. And so I had all these upgrade miles. And Alaska Airlines upgraded the entire family to first class.
Yeah.
And so they had a movie. And I found out what the movie was. I was like, you guys are all watching this.
Yeah.
It was with Liam Neeson, Taken. Wow. And I wanted my girls especially to watch this.
Yeah. Which one? Taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
The first one. Yeah, the first one.
I think he's up to 19 at this point.
But, and the message to them afterwards was, if anything were to happen to you, I would do everything I had to help you.
Yeah.
I mean, bullets coming, guess what?
I'm jumping.
They're getting behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys will feel the same way about your kids.
It's that sacrifice that you're willing to make to see that success. And that's probably what drove you during that time where you were away from them, to be like, well, why am I doing this in the first place? To make sure that I'm giving them the life that they're able to have a lot more freedom and choice later on. And I think a lot of it is probably in the upbringing too, right? To, you know, try to live a life that, you know, that you're either, how you grew up is not, that's not like, I'm working this hard to make sure that I'm not going to live the life like I know I can, or I may be living if I don't do this. So
and life isn't always all peachy and good things, right? You know, like you said, you argue with your wife. Sometimes it's more than you want to, or it escalates. Like, but have you entered a time where you've had a strong disagreement with one of your kids?
Well, there's strong disagreements, but you can have a strong disagreement, and I'm not going to mention which kid, where you're just not seeing eye to eye at all. And
that's hard, I'm sure.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of like when you talk about something and all of a sudden it becomes a debate, and one person is trying to convince the other as opposed to truly listening to the other person. When and it's happened a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit. The important thing there is to keep the lines of communication open.
Yeah.
Talk, right? And the one example I'm thinking about, that's come full circle.
Yeah.
You know, where that's to the wayside, you know, and it's, again, just being there. You never want to say fine.
Yeah.
And walk away.
Yeah.
You know, you always want to, and it's hard sometimes, you know, because sometimes our kids do, you know, think about, you know, sometimes they do bonehead things, right? But they're still humans, right? They're humans who, you know, either whether it's me who made the mistake or them who made a mistake, being there, and it comes back to, we're family.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. I don't care what you've done. I don't care if you agree with me on this or not. We're family.
Yeah.
And family sticks together.
Yeah. Ohana. I recently watched Lilo and Stitch for the first time a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Top of the memory there.
That's funny.
No, I think like that grace is very important, and I know that I
grace.
personally had like struggles in my life about call it forgiving, right? Where like, you know, this person said this to me, like, should I forgive? But I think like keeping those lines of communication open, even if you're in the wrong, is like, I am going to fully own my place in this, but I'm not going to let that touch our relationship. I'm not going to let our disagreement hurt how we feel about each other, right? And we always love each other.
And it's not easy to always do that, though.
Yeah.
Right? So,
for sure.
You know, sometimes you're so ticked off, you know, and, you know, to say, yeah, you know what? That's okay. And again, as you, and you know, depending on the age of that child, right, and you know, and the age that you are within that relationship, you know, sometimes it's hard. But at the end of the day, man up.
Man, for sure. Man up.
You know, there's more important things than your ego.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, that's a whole nother rewiring and discussion in that sense too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a learning journey in ego management.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process that it never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops. And, you know, I think we grow over time. Karen probably wishes I would grow faster. But
Sure, I'll watch it too.
Oh, now you're figuring this out?
yeah, better late than never.
Right.
You know?
Somehow wives are just,
They're on it.
they're
on it.
And again, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
Right? We do the best with what we know, what we've learned, and what we see.
Yeah.
We're not perfect.
Yeah. When you you know, when your kids look back on their childhood, what do you hope they remember the most?
That they were loved.
Okay.
easy.
That they were
That's
loved.
the easy one.
Yeah.
And then if you could pass one piece of fatherhood advice to call it Dads Like Us, what would it be?
Love your kids.
Yeah.
Love your spouse more.
Wow.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. So love your kids, love your spouse more. I mean, your kids are going to be with you directly for 17, 18 years.
Yeah.
Right? Your spouse is with you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Or the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
That's some solid advice.
Yeah, something that Valencia and I have communicated and talked about is like, if there's two things that we can impart on our kids is there's two important decisions, and we got this from somewhere. There's two important decisions that you'll make in life. It's whether you follow Jesus and who you choose to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because that person,
It's huge.
it's everything.
Sounds good.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Episode 3.
Likewise, episode 3. Peace out.